DC Comics announced that they are no longer publishing comics under the banner of Vertigo. This is a banner that's been running for just more than a quarter century. Don't you think that's shocking?
Yeah, why would they end it?
I mean, there's so many reasons that we talked about this, of how DC now wants to streamline everything and make it one cohesive universe, the superhero universe. So even though they took years of trying to take these off-kilter characters or fringe characters and make them either outside of the DC universe or just on the edge of the universe, now I think their idea is they want to, because of all the marketing and merchandising and movies and TV shows, they want to make a complete universe out of the characters that they own. But Vertigo was known for more than just the fringe characters that were already in the DC universe. There was also a lot of independent publications. They were using creators that own their works and just wanted to make a 6-issue or 10-issue series of it. I mean, the average person, when they hear Vertigo, they think of either an Alfred Hitchcock movie or some sort of disorder. But us as comic fans, when we hear Vertigo, what do we think of?
Okay, there's Lucifer, Shade the Changing Man, Y the Last Man Standing, Sandman, Fables, Swamp Thing.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. I mean, you know your Vertigo.
Oh wait, there's more. Preacher, Doom Patrol, Hellblazer, Black Orchid, Animal Man.
I mean, there's all great titles. And just to think about that some are known as superhero titles, but then some of them are totally in the realms of mysticism and magic.
I mean, yeah, it's all of these things. A lot of them are very dark stories, but it's a whole slew of different things.
Now, it's been said that during this time period of when Vertigo started in the early to mid-90s, that the credit actually goes back to Watchmen, because this was a time when they say comic books were maturing. There was more of a sensibility. Swamp Thing, Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing.
The introduction of John Constantine.
Totally. That was part of the mentality, the thinking of the need for branching out to a different area, that DC Comics needed to have not just mature titles, but things that they could express outside of the DC universe.
Sandman was a big player in that.
Oh, absolutely. Remember the early issues of Sandman? It had actually superhero characters in there.
Yeah.
But within time, Neil Gaiman had to break away from that in order to tell the stories that he needed to tell in the realm of dreams. And we could say that was a time when the next step of comic books maturing, where non-comic book fans were coming to comic book stores to read the works of Neil Gaiman and of Alan Moore. And
this was when trade paperbacks became popular.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in fact, with one of your book club groups, when you were in Atlanta, didn't you have like a ladies' book club group where you got together and read science fiction and fantasy together on a regular basis?
Well, it was part of Geek Girls of North Atlanta, but they had a separate book club, yes. And
how did graphic novels get introduced into this book club?
It was just for variety, and sometimes we just wanted something shorter because February was a shorter month, and it's like, well, we'll read a graphic novel.
And what did you end up reading?
Fables was one of them, and it was awesome.
Wow, tell us about that. And this is an interesting discussion as well, because it's said that it was during this time when, they were known as the Berger books, because Karen Berger was instrumental in taking these fringe comics from DC, these fringe characters from DC, as well as pulling in these new and exciting creators to create the Vertigo line. It's been said that more women were reading comics because of this branding of the Vertigo line. What was the reaction to Fables with your ladies' book club in North Atlanta?
Everyone enjoyed it. It was a great story. It had It had these familiar characters from fairy tales and puts them in real life situations. And of course, it was an adult story, but it was just very well written, and everyone loved it. I mean, it's just great to see these characters that we grew up with. They're grown up now, and they have these real life problems.
And what do you think these type of stories resonated with women more?
I mean, part of it is having women as some of the main characters. But also, I mean, because women are, as we've talked about this before, coming more into the geek world and coming out of the closet, I think, because we've always been interested in these things. So it just appeals because it's got this, these great stories. And
that's why I think that for me, I was not so much of a DC Comics fan. I've mentioned it many times before. I was most of the time Marvel. But when it came around the time of Swamp Thing, I was understanding how incredible Swamp Thing was. Yes, he was in the DC universe, but just outside of the DC universe to a degree. And at the comic store that I was going to at the time, it was called the Nostalgia Shop, had this wonderful guy working there, Paul Dubois. And this is why we want to go to that comic store in Massachusetts so badly, the Comic Book Palace. Because it's owned by a shopkeeper that actually reads comics. It's so frustrating now because a lot of comic stores, either the people working the counter or the owners, don't really read comics. They don't keep up with them. They can't have conversations. But this guy, he goes, boy, if you like Swamp Thing, then you're going to like Animal Man. He got me onto Animal Man. He got me onto Doom Patrol. And then when Sandman came out, he's like, why don't you come over to my place? We'll read comics together, and I'll give you some background of the DC universe to see how this is going in a different direction. And then for me, I realized, like, wow, these comics are so different than the standard superhero DC comics. I like this. And within time, Karen Berger came in and said, let's just take these ones and create a separate mature readers banner just for them, and things that are just so radically different. And unknowingly, this broadened the horizons for comic book fans of a more mature sensibility.
Now, do you remember if Neil Gaiman, was Sandman his first thing that he wrote? Like, he never wrote any novels before that?
No. As far as I know, no, because he did...
he did Black Orchid first.
That's right. He did Black Orchid, you're right. And then went into Sandman. And so I believe he did comics first and then novels, if I'm not mistaken.
I remember seeing him at Dragon Con in the early 90s, and he talked about Sandman, and I believe that was all he spoke about at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a stroke of genius, because traditionally, women read more novels than men, especially fantasy and science fiction. Things of that sort. So, I mean, to widen the horizon and to bring more people into this medium and bring a sensibility and raise the level of the medium, I think that is what Vertigo is going to be known for when we look back.
For doing something different and for pushing the envelope and doing quality work. Yeah, it is a shame we're losing this.
I mean, look at the comic book scene of the late 80s. There was just a burst of talent that did not fit into the superhero tropes.
We can thank Dark Horse Comics for that.
That is true, because Dark Horse was bringing in a lot of independent artists and writers that were telling non-traditional stories.
I think DC saw that as competition.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And so they had to bring in some of this talent of things that were non-superhero.
Like Why the Last Man Standing.
Yeah, when they brought that in, that was groundbreaking in the fact that, I mean, that came later in the Vertigo line, but that shook everything up. People were saying, wow, what would happen if every male on the planet died except for one?
Amazing. Yeah, what an interesting idea.
Yeah, so it was like pseudo science fiction, part social issues. I mean, That is what I'm going to miss so much about Vertigo, as you brought it up, the variety. There was so many different things in there, but there were comics that were designed for adults and specifically for thinking adults. And we could thank this amazing quarter-century run of Vertigo, and even before that. So we're looking at about 30 years of comics under the direction of Karen Berger. She did some amazing things. I never got a chance to meet her in real life. I know you said you haven't either at any cons. But if I did meet her, all I want to say is thank you. Thank you for pushing my mind of what comics could be and actually what comic books should be.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We'll miss Vertigo.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.